This will be an interesting one in terms of flip-flopping. That word is used a lot with Joe Rogan, and I have defended him in the past and said, is it okay to change your mind, grow and educate yourself on a given subject and maybe have a different perspective? Or is it just flip-flopping? If we go back to my original video about the Bud Light and the UFC, we'll see that at the end of that video I said I'd give Dana White a chance because of his track record. And a lot of people just weren't as willing to give him a chance because they saw what Bud Light was doing was going after children, aiming this towards the TikTok generation. This Dylan Mulvaney mental illness, promoting it on our kids and all that sort of craziness, and people just aren't interested in that. And I think that has held strong all the way through. This whole Bud Light are now sponsoring the UFC and they're rejuvenating their brand because people just stopped buying that shit, right? First of all, as you know, I don't drink. It's probably piss water. But besides that, how many videos have we seen come out across the board where we saw waitresses saying that she doesn't even use the Bud Light tap anymore? It's insane. So there really was a knock-on effect and a real-world effect of trying to promote this weird, bizarre ideology and aim it towards a younger generation. Dana White almost got a pass with this whole scenario because he introduced it back into the UFC. You do see it advertised on UFC Fight Night and pay-per-views, but it kind of feels a little bit quiet. It kind of feels like a little bottle of Bud Light down here in the bottom corner, and that's kind of what we're sponsored by, and we move on really quickly. And to be honest with you, as patriotic as it is and as much as I like it, when the army sponsor the UFC, them adverts are fairly quick as well. So it's kind of one of them situations where it's like, okay, listen, we're going to take the money, we're going to do the sponsorship, we might actually even believe in the product, but we're just going to run it real quick here and hope people don't get too bent out of shape about it. So two of the biggest names in UFC, Sean Strickland and, would you believe it, Joe Rogan, right? We're going to have a look in the aftermath of this like Bud Light campaign, rejuvenation of brand, how both of them are looking at it in the perspective of what do we do now? Do we still hold true to our original beliefs? How do we react to what Bud Light tried to do? I know that they sponsor the UFC. Joe Rogan works for the UFC. Sean Strickland works for the UFC. What way did both of them come at it in current times? What was Joe Rogan and Kid Rock talking about? There was people called losers. Let's just put that right out there because it's probably going to be on the thumbnail. And it was used in a nice negative way towards us, the people who not only boycotted this crazy ideology, but also the people that are fans of UFC, MMA in general. So it's an interesting one. We'll have a little look. So Kid Rock appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast and the issue of Bud Light came up. As we know, Kid Rock was a huge proponent of this being absolute insanity by Bud Light. He did that crazy video where he used his weapon to shoot a bunch of cans of Bud Light or some crap like that. And you see him, he's hanging out with Donald Trump, he's with Dana White. He's the guy, right? He's the embodiment of conservatism. All these movements are psyoped and they're all compromised. And we kind of see the same thing here with Kid Rock. Because now, all of a sudden, he's not angry anymore with Bud Light for trying to push this trash on our children. Now, because he hung out with the CEO for 5 minutes, he wants to tell you that you're a fucking loser. You're a loser and a troll and a hater, and most of it is coming from online. This is the exact same place where he went to show his cool video of him blowing up all these cans. So this guy can virtue signal to the world and take all the plaudits from the conservatives on the right hand side of the political landscape. Once he gets to the point where some money seemed to have changed hands, perhaps, then all of a sudden we're through a little narrative shift and you're a loser and a hater. Let's have a listen.
I wish people knew these guys running the company because they're great guys. But I said, you know, there's just a percentage of these trolls on the left and on the right. They're like, I'm so empowered by the internet. You know, I have a voice. It's like, go yourself. All right, cut it out. Like, if anyone's still spending time on this, you clearly are bored. Find something better to do.
Yeah, it's definitely the pursuit of losers. But the problem is those losers can actually affect businesses. And that's what they know. They know now that it's possible.
First of all, we'll address what Kid Rock said, right? Is it flip-flopping? Is it someone changing their opinion and growing and being more educated on a given topic? Because he actually uses a line in here that I find extremely offensive. And he says, if you're still bothered that Bud Light tried to spin an ideology of mental illness and direct it towards children, and then all the other bystanders that used to drink this beer after a hard week at work, they fell in for it as well, because now they have to pick up cans of beer and they have to be associated with some dude who's dressing up as a girl, and he's clearly mentally ill. All these people, if you're still bothered by it, in his words, then you're bored. Move the fuck on. That's the consistency of the right. That's the consistency of the conservative movement. You see these fake conservatives like Ben Shapiro and fools like that. You can't buy into that crap. You can't buy into that crap, and you gotta hold your ground. People talk about the red pill movement and how it's dying and how it's dead, and it's associated with all this weird Bugatti and leaving the Matrix. And as I said a million times before, for me it's not about that, it's about consistency. When I wasn't left into cafes and restaurants and bars back in 2020 because of the pandemic, and there were 16-year-old girls standing up outside these bars with iPads checking my papers, you think that I'm gonna go back there? You think that I'm ever gonna go back into these places and give them my money again? No, I never have. I never went near them, and I never will. It's called consistency and holding your ground. It's not called, well, you're bored, come up with something else and build a bridge and get over it. That's what Kid Rock is telling us to do here. Build a bridge and get over it, guys. You gotta be bored if you're still complaining about this crazy trans movement that is directed towards our children. Build a bridge, get over it, move on, you're bored. Then to compound it, one of the biggest voices and faces in UFC MMA world chimes in with this banger.
Yeah, it's definitely the pursuit of losers, but the problem is those losers can actually affect businesses, and that's what they know. They know now that it's possible.
This is an infuriating statement by Joe Rogan. It's definitely the pursuit of losers, and now these losers know that they can affect business. That's the best bit of news that I've heard in a long time. So all the work that people do exposing this trash, pointing it out, sharing it on social media, pushing out videos and sharing stuff around that calls out this crap, it's actually having an effect in the real world because people are not buying this shit. And according to Joe Rogan, the face of the UFC, the face of MMA, the face of podcasting, you're a loser. If you hold strong on your beliefs and you don't back down and you don't flip-flop, you are a loser. This is an insane interview. This is an insane interaction. And I can't believe that people are just going to hold up their hands and let this slide under the radar again. We listened to Joe last week on a pay-per-view. We listened to him glaze Ian Gary about leg kicks for 15 minutes. It was nauseating, vomit-inducing. How can we keep giving him a second chance? And we talk about the juxtaposition between Joe Rogan and one of the biggest names in UFC MMA right now, Sean Strickland. So Sean Strickland came at this from a totally different angle. He came at it from an angle of, hey Bud Light, I am actually on board with giving you a chance, but I will fix you. And what does he mean by I will fix you? Well, he would come out with stuff like this.
Guys, I'm on my way to training, and I just found out Bud Light's a new sponsor. And goddamn, I applaud you guys. I am so fucking proud of you guys for doing the right things after that up. You know how I feel about transgenders. I go fucking hard. Just what I do. I'm the biggest advocate of biological females. If I said my views on transgenders, I would get kicked off Instagram. But I could not fucking wait to pick up a big old fucking Bud Light can and fix you, Bud Light, because you guys are doing the right fucking thing. I, Sean Strickland, a representation of the American people, are gonna fix you, Bud Light. Thank you for giving me money. Thank you for supporting my platform. I'm gonna help you guys.
Oh. It's a nuanced take by Sean Strickland there. He's going to fix them. Thank you. By virtue of the fact that you sponsor UFC, then your monetary contributions to that company go straight into the pocket of Sean Strickland. And he holds strong to his beliefs. Unlike Joe Rogan, unlike Kid Rock, he's not wavering because this was when the initial announcement came out. And we'll say maybe 1 or 2 months later, when the question was posed to him about Bud Light and about what is affiliated with that drink, how did he react during that press conference?
You'd go so hard on Bud Light in your next fight, said this past October. But I did want to ask also things you said about the trans community. You said this past October when they announced the Bud Light sponsorship that you'd go so hard on Bud Light in your next fight, they'll have to accept me or denounce me when they know what, and will know what they stand for. Are you
This guy's like, this Canadian's not that Canadian.
Are you still going to use your fight time to kind of speak on that?
10 years ago, to be trans was a mental fucking illness. And now all of a sudden, people like you have fucking weaseled your way into the world. You are an infection. You are the definition of weakness. Everything that is wrong with the world is because of fucking you. And the best thing is the world's not buying it. The world's not buying your fucking bullshit you're fucking peddling. The world is not saying, you know what, you're right. Chicks have dicks. The world's not saying that. The world's saying, no, there are two genders. I don't want my kids being taught about, who they could fuck in school. I don't want my kids being taught about, their sexual preference. Like, dude, this guy is a enemy.
So what's the difference between Sean Strickland and Joe Rogan after a lapse in time in terms of their opinions about Bud Light and what they propagate and what they promote? Well, Sean Strickland calls it like it is. You are an infection. You are a disease. You are everything that is wrong with the world right now. And people are not buying it. We do not want our kids being taught this trash in the school system. We do not want them indoctrinated by a pernicious, premeditated, directed advertisement aimed at kids and TikTok generations with mentally ill people in it. So Kid Rock and Joe Rogan, you can't just follow suit with the likes of Ian Gary and his wife and John Anik and blanket everyone with this hater troll statement. That is not washing either. People are not buying that shit either, bro. So I hope that we've pointed out the difference between what Joe Rogan does and what Sean Strickland does. And the position that we're in now is right after Sean Strickland comes out and does his best to save Bud Light during that press conference, he loses his belt in a very contentious title. I'll let you answer whether you think that that might be a little bit of a coincidence. Let me know your thoughts on that one down below. If you could hit like, that'd be awesome. That would push the video out there a small bit more for me. If you could hit subscribe, I'd really appreciate it as well. Cheers, I'll see you later on.